They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badger name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. The heroes undo the harm, calling out corruption. We'll stand tall for justice and truth. We'll risk it all. My life mattered is the cry we sing. Together we rise, let freedom ring.
Hello, good evening, social change warriors and justice seekers. Welcome back to another episode of Social Change Warriors. I'm your host and founder, Catherine Felton Page, and tonight we have a very special episode. We are veering away from our true crime element and veering away from advocating for all of the victims of the homicides that we've been following this past year. Just for tonight, we're going to focus on survival. And the survival we're focusing on is that from alcoholism. This is a topic that is very huge in our country. It involves everyone in so many ways. It involves us on our own level at times. It involves us on a family level, a friend level, a coworker level. There have been so many cases of people fighting a battle against something that most of us who haven't had to fight that battle really understand or know. We think we know because we hear about it all the time. And alcohol, let's face it, it's a huge part of our society in the entire world. But for some reason, especially here in the United States, we really glamorize it and we peer pressure it. Crazy amount of peer pressure involved with alcohol, with drinking, with socializing, with drinking, with everything we do. So I really wanted to bring a good friend of mine on the platform tonight who is a survivor. I consider him a survivor because unless you've had to break a habit of some sort and a habit that involves your health, you really don't know what that's like. And I know we all have habits that we want to break, that we try to work on. So we do have an inkling of that. But when it involves your health and when it involves something that your body is now craving you to have, you really don't understand it. And I don't fully, completely understand it. So I wanted to know more about it. And I thought this was a good time to bring my friend John up on the platform. And I asked him to invite a friend, bring a friend along. I typically do that with the guests. I ask them to bring someone along that can also speak to the plight that we're talking about, to the social conscious of what we have to deal with. And he did. He invited a friend, and I'm really happy to have Kelly and John with us tonight. So for those of you that are new to Social Change Warriors, or if you haven't been here in a while, we are an advocacy channel. And the purpose of our advocacy is to advocate for victims of homicide who have no justice, whose cases have stalled in the court system or stalled in the police system, and their families are in terror every day because their loved one is gone and they have no justice for the death of that person that was taken by the hands of someone else. So as you saw, if you watched our intro song, and I'll be playing that again before we leave tonight, those are all of the dear lives that have been taken by the hands of someone else that we've been advocating for. We just had our year anniversary last week. We've been live streaming for advocacy for victims of homicide for the past year. And I appreciate all of you that have joined our channel, that are members of our channel, that come in and out, watch us on the replay, and share out the stories of these wonderful humans whose lives ended way too soon. And sadly, for the past weeks after weeks after weeks, we have seen school shootings, another school shooting now yesterday, the horrific, tragic death of Charlie Kirk, who was an advocate and a political advocate. And I personally didn't always agree with what he talked about or his speech, but I appreciated him as a human. I appreciated him as someone who had the guts to go out and talk about the things he believed in. And that's what we all have the human right to do. We all have a right as Americans, because we live in America, that we can talk about what we believe in. We talk about what we believe in all the time here at Social Change Warriors. We talk about justice for homicide victims. If we lived in many other countries, we would never be able to do that. I would be threatened daily. My guests would be threatened. And so because of political violence now, we have lost a speaker who was willing to speak and advocate for what he believed in. And my heartfelt condolences go out to his wife, his children who are apolitical. They're just little children, his family, his friends, his colleagues. It's a travesty. I'm going to talk more about it tomorrow night at the top of the hour for our regularly scheduled Friday Night Lives, where we talk about the fallout from the John O'Keefe death and Karen Read trials 1 and 2. We also talk about other interesting happenings in Massachusetts with, unfortunately, crime and corruption, and also bad police work, unfortunately. And then we also update you on all of our victims that we've been advocating for to keep you up to date on how they're doing. So I'll talk more about what happened. I'm very sad about what's happened on social media with all of this today, with the blaming of different parties. And there is no real explanation for why political violence happens. People that are not well in their brain get fixated on one subject or another, or on one political party or another, and then they become very much insane. And that's the only way that you could carry out an act like this. And we just saw that happen 40 days ago when the senator and the congresswoman from Minnesota were gunned down in their homes. I mean, it's horrible. It's a travesty. We have to work together as a large community of Americans and fix our violence problem. It's not a left or a right problem. It's a bipartisan problem, and we have to figure it out. We can't be so upset and mad at each other all the time because we don't agree on policy that we let our words become spiteful and hateful and mean. I have seen things today that have shocked my soul. People calling for war. And it's insane. This is insane. We have to call for a war on violence, a war on getting people that are very mentally incapacitated. We have to watch out for them. We have to see something, say something. That's how we can prevent these senseless shootings. And also the shooting in Colorado. I'm so sorry for all of the parents and the family. I don't have an update for you. I haven't seen if there have been any fatalities, because that just got buried yesterday. There was so much trauma. And then that poor young woman on the subway. It's just been a horrible, despicable time in our country these last few weeks with all of this violence. And we have to figure out a way to lower it. So I'll be talking about that a little bit tomorrow night with those of you that want to talk about it and give your opinions. That would be great. And but tonight we are focusing on survival. We are focusing on two strong individuals who have been kind enough to join us tonight, and I'm really happy to have them. So we are Social Change Warriors, and we are an advocacy channel. We hope you'll consider subscribing to us. It doesn't cost you anything to be an advocate with us. Just share on social media the victims that we advocate for and their families' plight about their cases that are unsolved. I would really appreciate that. Our hashtag is My Life Mattered, and that's what we believe that victims of homicide and victims of any senseless crime are saying to us. Please solve my crime. My life mattered. So thank you for being here tonight, everyone. And let me bring our guests up onto the stage and I'll let them introduce themselves to you. I'm really happy to have with me tonight John from Madison, Wisconsin, and Kelly. I know you're from Fall River, right?
Right.
Great. Well, Kelly, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience tonight?
Well, my name is Kelly Marks, and I've been a recovering alcoholic for many decades. I relapsed after 20 years sober, and I currently have 18 years sober.
That's great to hear that you've been able to come back from that, Kelly, and we'll get into more questions as we go here. John, welcome. Introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John, and I've been in recovery. What? Oh, my name is John, and I've been in recovery now for 38 years of continuous sobriety. Just doing the daily thing of what it takes to remain sober.
That's wonderful. It's just great. I'm so glad that you guys are willing to be brave and share with us what it was like, what you went through when you were struggling with your sobriety and when you actually realized that you did have some type of a dependency on alcohol. I think it will really help. It will help anyone that comes to our show live tonight or watches us on the replay that's considering entering into a life of sobriety or that who may be struggling with their current sobriety. So before I start with my questions, I just wanted to tell just kind of, let me see, let me get this correct here. There we go. I just wanted to ask you just a few things. I wanted to share a few things that I found out in my research and just from things that I have learned from different people that I have met in my life that have struggled with their sobriety. But I also want to say a tribute to 9/11, to all of the victims. My life mattered, and to all their families and friends and colleagues, and to the 50,000 who have suffered from cancer and other lung-related issues from all of their heroic volunteerism that day, and whether they were on the job or not, or they were volunteering to help save lives. They are suffering because they are now suffering with these conditions. So we're prayers and thoughts and everything we can towards all of the victims and survivors of 9/11. It's certainly a day that none of us will ever forget, that we're alive and that we're there to witness it, even if it was just on TV. To those of you that are young and you weren't here when it happened, you're learning about it via history. And it's still a day to recognize and remember all of the survivors and those that were killed. So if I asked those of you that are in the replay tonight, when you come on, if you want to answer in the chat box, but if I asked you guys, John and Kelly, what do you think this percentage represents? 30%, something to do with the use of alcohol. What would you have a guess?
Now, I would think possibly that's the percentage of alcoholics who actually have long-term sobriety.
That's a good guess. John, do you have one? Are you still with us? Okay.
One in three people in this country have some form of drug addiction. And when you look at that number, then the 30% represents that how many of them will remain sober or recover from their addiction. So basically, it's a dual thing that 1 in 3 are addicted and 1 in 3 will recover, basically.
Good. And that is true. I did read that as well. But this percentage actually has to do with when people go to the hospital. This is the percentage of people that go to the hospital that end up, they either find out that they have an alcohol issue or they have to have special treatment because they are alcoholics. So they have to tell the doctor that they're struggling with alcoholism, and that has a difference as to what medications and how they can be treated. So that's 30% of people that enter the hospital have an addiction to alcohol. What do you think this number is? 17.6 million. Hi, Amber E. Nice to see you tonight in the live. Thanks for being here.
I'm not sure. Because I think there are more addicts in the country than that. I don't really know what that number represents.
Well, that actually is the number of people that have issues with alcoholism. It's one in every 12 adults abuse alcohol or alcohol dependent, and the majority of the population who does consume alcohol is moderate or occasional. So it's 1 in 12 that end up having some type of addiction or some type of issues with it. So basically, I guess what I want to ask both of you, and you can take turns now. I'm going to run and get my water bottle, which is just on the other side of my desk, John. So why don't you start out and tell us when you first became like attracted to alcohol, and what was that like for you?
Well, I was 12 years old when I started drinking.
You have to speak up just a little bit, John.
What's that?
Just talk a little bit louder.
Okay.
Thanks.
I was 12 years old when I started drinking, and then I was 12 years old when I started drinking, and then I had an accident. I became addicted. I was 12 years old, and I became addicted to morphine and codeine until the age of about 13. Then I started, because they took me off of the codeine, I started drinking more heavily. By the time I was a junior in high school, I already knew that I was a full-blown alcoholic. I was drinking before I was going to school, actually in the middle of my 10th grade. And I would drink after work, before going to work, and my grades suffered because of it. I became sloppy out on the football field, and and it really took a toll on me. So it was right before my 26th birthday that I came into this program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I wasn't looking for a way to really quit drinking. I wanted to drink like a normal person without all the things that came. Involved in an incident where a couple of people were severely injured because of my action, and I decided that I needed to quit drinking permanently. So I walked back through the doors of AA and said, I'm here.
Now, before you go forward with that, I just want to walk it back because I want to have Kelly tell us up to the point where you are at. And then that way I can keep you too with your stories and what you're sharing with us equal throughout the evening. So Kelly, can you tell us when you were first attracted to drinking, and what was it that attracted you to drinking alcohol?
Well, I was a very lucky little alcoholic. When I was 9 years old, my mother married a liquor salesman. And so he kept his inventory in our garage. So I learned how to pick that lock by the time I was 11, and I basically was a maintenance drinker from then on. I initially got sober when I was 24, 23, right after my son was born, because I just had this revelation that I didn't have any way to raise a child. I couldn't even take care of myself. I'd never grown up. I had been drunk my entire formative years. And I just want to say one thing, Kathy. I have often thought that if my stepfather would have been a heroin dealer, I would have been a heroin addict. It really didn't matter what it was. Alcohol wasn't what called me. It was this ability for it to transform me and take me out of my own emotional pain.
I was just going to ask you that question. Yes, that was my next question for you, Kelly, is what is it that you were either feeling you were missing or that you were craving? What, and then you just answered it for me. It was you were in some type of trauma, some type of pain, and the alcohol kind of helped you escape from that for a little while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my earliest memories back when I was in diapers, I can remember feeling so different and removed and separate from the rest of my family. I didn't feel attached to anyone, and I didn't feel safe because I was physically and sexually abused when I was quite young, when I was a toddler. And so when I found alcohol, it was it was my answer. It wasn't a problem. It was the relief that I needed so that I could let down my walls a little bit and just express myself freely. I had never been able to do that prior to that. And so that kept me going. It wasn't my friend for a long time. I can remember at age 14 sipping on my rum and coke and thinking, I might be an alcoholic. I'm doing this every day, you
Right.
know? And
You even noticed that at such a young age, right?
yeah,
You
I tried
started
to
to get
do
those
it.
feelings, right?
Right. I was just, trying to get rid of my feelings of differentness.
Right. And
So
I
for
don't
me,
think you're alone in that, Kelly. I don't think you're alone in that. I think that might be it'd be interesting to, and maybe when we meet again in October, I'd love to have you guys back because I know we won't be able to cover everything that I'd like to talk about with you both tonight. But I think if when we have you back in October, I'll make notes of things that I want to that I'll look up prior because I know there's research on that. There's definitely research on when they interview when people agree to be part of a study, what led you to start drinking? Was it just simply high school peer pressure and you just wanted to give it a try? Because that's all of us try. Most of us have all tried alcohol when we were in
right.
high school. Because it's just so accepted in our world and in our country. And it looks like it's something exciting to do. And it's like a rite of passage, like, oh, I'm an adult now, I can drink alcohol. For me personally, I had a very strict family. My mom basically said, I better never catch you drinking till you're 18 or you're going to get kicked off of cheerleading in the band and all the things you love and track and field. And I took that very seriously. And I was lucky because I didn't have any childhood trauma like that I didn't have anything that I felt I needed alcohol for. Now, I was bullied as a child when I was little because of red hair and freckles. And it was very impactful on my health when I was in like first, second, and third grade. I had really bad anxiety and I had bad stomach aches. And there were these two bullies that they attacked me verbally every single day. And sometimes I wonder, like, how did I not end up maybe like a 13 or a 14-year-old who needed either cigarettes or drugs or alcohol? Because once I got older, the bullying stopped, but it was so impactful when I was a child. And I feel so lucky that maybe it's my DNA just didn't crave that as my coping mechanism, where I think, and this is something that I want to get to ask John about too, is do you feel, Kelly, and then I'll ask John the same question, but do you feel that there is an incredible amount of peer pressure when you are young to try alcohol and drugs?
I think so. I really do. Unfortunately, I think there's less today because kids are all addicted to social media. They've got a new addiction now. But I think that
There's
was
more
the way
knowledge. Yes.
together.
Yeah.
That was the social time to drink and use drugs. And for me, it was never, past that initial, oh, good, I feel free. That probably lasted about 2 years, and then it was like I can't stop. I couldn't function in a social situation without it.
Right. Now, John, how do you feel about that? I mean, what is your take on that? Oops.
Well, I was an adult child of alcoholics, a child of alcoholics. And there is a program called Adult Children of Alcoholics.
Yes, I've heard of that, John.
I went to several of those meetings, and being married to a person that later on would become, her and I, we would reverse role. Where I left off, she took up. And so I went to a few animal meetings, just to know
Yeah.
what was going on in that world. But it was taking up too much of my time that was for me, because I couldn't concentrate on her because she had already left the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to get over the hump of where my parents came here, and I forgave them a long time, ago, because they tried to pit us kids against, each parent.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, one day I said, look, you got an issue with that person, you go to them, you tell them.
Right.
Don't put me into it. And that was part of the problem of drinking. They enabled me to drink. They never said anything. If I wanted something to drink, my dad would drive, to the store and get it for me. My mom would drive me to the bar, and pick me back up. They just never really informed me that, hey, my grandparents, my great grandparents, back generations were alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go and question them.
So, John, it was never really shared with you that this could be a DNA, a familia issue that could be passed from generation to generation. That was never shared with you.
No, it was never shared until I came on to them and said, what's going on with me? And there you have it, that people don't understand, what happened once they pick up that first drink or drug.
Right.
I'm like me, I was really addicted until, I came to terms with that,
Mm-hmm.
But once and even today when I go to the doctor and I say, look, I love codeine, and so they limit it to me, that if I have a surgery or whatever, because my body will crave it afterwards.
Right.
And it's kind of painful that I have to endure the pain of not being able to actually take care of my body the way that a normal person would.
Sure, exactly. So I brought this slide up because you both spoke of it already, that there is research that the development of, sorry about that, I got to turn off that noise. There's much research that the development of alcoholism is attributed to environment and genetics equally. So we can't say, oh, it's, everybody who has alcoholic issues with alcohol and gets addicted, it's because of their family or it's because of environment. The researchers, the scientists, the doctors, they truly believe that it's equal, that there's an equal contribution. So Kelly, did your family have any alcoholism in the family, or were you the first one?
Oh, no. Oh, no, it goes way back. My great-grandfather actually died an alcoholic. He was an actor. He also had syphilis, which I think is notable. That's just, he was married 5 times. He had as much manageability in his life as I had in mine. And my mom she died an alcoholic. Very, very sad, lonely life. She kind of dabbled in recovery here and there, but never really stuck.
Right.
She didn't even speak for a couple of decades because it was just toxic. It was impossible for me to stay sober and have a relationship with her. So, yeah, it goes way back.
So you both experienced the environmental and the DNA, the familia side of it. And so many people in our country, the environmental factors are huge. It's social. It's almost everything we do, every party, every celebration. Tonight, for instance, the Packers are playing the Washington Redskins, and we're all from Wisconsin. We're Packer fans, and you can bet that there'll be Packer parties at people's houses, or they'll just be celebrating at home. But alcohol is involved in so many of our activities, from graduations to weddings to Packer games to, for us in Wisconsin, Badger games. Here where I'm in Florida, it's all. I was just at the sports bar to watch the games on Sunday because my friend's a Washington Redskins fan, and so her and I went, and everybody was there. Just about everybody I saw was drinking alcohol. Maybe a few weren't, but it was a big majority. It's cultural, and behavioral influences are around us constantly. So how do we teach the kids, John and Kelly, how do we teach the kids how to prepare for this when they're young? Because when I was working as a UW police officer, I saw a lot of college age alcoholism, and they brought that with them to college from their teenage years. There's no doubt about it. Not many of them were first time drinkers when they got to college, the ones that had real problems that I was driving to detox on a weekly basis. And it was frightening to me to see this many kids at such a young age so attached to alcohol. Where are we going drinking tomorrow? When's this party? When are we getting a quarter barrel? I mean, it was overwhelming to me when I was in college, to be honest with you, because I didn't really like alcohol. It didn't like me. It made me very sick. So I would get very concerned about all my friends who were so focused on this element in their life. And then when I became a police officer, I had to see it again, all these college age kids. So John knows about this, Kelly, and I think I mentioned to you, I started a program for teenagers called Tough Choices. And I came up with a 50-minute presentation. I went and met with doctors, nurses, AA, anybody I could find, social workers that knew about alcoholism in teenagers. And I put together this 50-minute presentation, and I would bring guests with me from time to time. I would allow the teenagers to come up on stage and talk about their plight and how they got involved with drinking. And it was a really inspiring thing to be able to do, to be able to go around to the high schools and talk really frankly about alcohol. And so do you feel that's what we still need to be doing for the kids that are in high school? Because if we have to catch it early, right, John?
Well, the problem with that is that there used to be a program, even when I was in middle school, that were it was called Scared Straight.
I remember that.
Yeah, and people who were in recovery would come to 6th, 7th, 8th grade classes that I was in, and that they would talk about how drugs and alcohol led them to a life of crime. They had done time in prison because of robberies, attempted murder, even. And when you combine these factors, and one of the things is that these people, they did talk about how their parents were drug addicts and alcoholics, and that they learned these behaviors from them.
Yeah.
The problem with me was I didn't take after what parents did until I was a young adult. I was just out there drinking and to excess. But my parents, they were still active drinkers. And Dad, I was 13 when my dad quit drinking. We went to one AA meeting, read the book, and said, I know everything. He was on a dry drunk until the day he died for 40 years. My mom, she was in and out of the program, and then she had about 15 years of sobriety when she died. So, they understood where I was coming from, why I chose not to drink anymore, because not only did I adopt my mom's behaviors, but I adopted my dad's behavior, and it became almost lethal. That because of my alcoholism. So when you combine all these factors together,
right,
it was more than just genetics.
Yes.
It was like that thing. It was cultural. It was
Combination of everything.
the influences of other people even. So
Oh, sure. That can be a huge part of it. Who you're married to, who you're friends with. Kelly, do you want to kind of expand on that?
You know, in my mind, and the more I learn about this disease, you know, the opposite of addiction, I've heard it said, is connection. And I believe that. What led me to drugs and alcohol was my loneliness. I had a deep loneliness within me. I was unconnected to anyone. I mean, I was just completely not connected. I didn't have family I felt close to. I didn't have anybody that I really felt I trusted. There was a family who lived down the street who was probably the closest to, and I was telling you about them the other night, Kathy. The dad was the one that handled my stepfather's murder case. That's a whole other show. But
Yes.
they kind of took me in.
We're going to talk about that a little bit at the end tonight, Kelly. We're just a little bit at the end because we will have another live stream with you about your experience with what happened with your experience with the murder case. It's quite and scary, but we're happy you're willing to share it with us, and we'll set up another date for that.
Happens in all families. I did want to mention though that I'm looking into currently going into the high school here in the Columbus and Fall River school districts.
That's
and
great.
starting up, not discussing really alcohol, but having face-to-face conversations, teaching people how to treat each other, teaching people how to have face-to-face interaction, and not to feel like they're anonymous online and that's their only connection, because that's not a real connection. And because I see so much of that now. I see people so, I've been in a management position in my jobs, and I can't find young people who know how to function. They can hold a phone, but they can't have a conversation with other human beings. And so I've really, really been concerned about that, because that leads to addiction. In my mind, that's the cause of my disease. I was lonely and I was suffering.
I'm sure there's a good percentage that would agree with you that that's what led, there's different reasons why different people are drawn to alcohol in the first place, and why, because of their constitution, whether it be DNA or just the way they're just prone to an addictive personality. That's something that they needed to be educated on and warned about, that, hey, this, because if you feel you have an addictive personality, if you've been to the doctor and they feel that you have historical genetics that could lead to alcoholism, you better be really careful with how often you drink. But that just doesn't happen enough, right, John? We're not getting enough of that in our youth, where we're being educated on what alcohol can do to us and how easily some people can become addicted to it.
Right. And it's like it says at the bottom of your screen here, that scrolling, knowledge, power, action, change.
Yes.
When you come to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, you gain the knowledge, you find the higher power of your own understanding, and you take the action, the steps necessary to change. And I really like that you have that scrolling down there. Thank you.
That's I'm glad you noticed that, because I usually talk about it at the beginning of the show, that's kind of that's our theme, is you need all of that in order to have any type of change in your life for good, whether you're fighting for and advocating for a victim of a homicide, or you're advocating for your community for better laws or stricter laws, or you're advocating for yourself, for your own self-survival.
And most murders happen not by chance, but some are by chance, I should say. Most of them are drug and alcohol influence, that they and they're premeditated, that they're angry at this person, and yet later on they may find remorse, but most people are not remorseful in what they do.
Right.
In my case, I was very remorseful, that what happened, because it should have never,
Right.
Right. And it's not that I killed anybody. I just happened to hurt, I hurt somebody, and, but it was all under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah.
And even though it was deemed self-defense, it still doesn't make it right.
Right. Right.
They said that I was just defending myself against the behaviors of other people, I should say.
Right.
But it was all influenced by being drunk, And so I had to change that. The only way I could change it was by saying, what do I do? How do I go about it?
Right.
And that's what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous did for me.
And I have questions about that. I want you both to share what type of programs you used or helped with. First, I just wanted to bring up, I know it's hard to read this, so I'll read it off on my main screen, but the nurture argument I found very interesting. And I'm wondering if they ever spoke to you about that during Alcoholics Anonymous, or if your doctor or anybody that you spoke to when you decided to stop drinking. So what the nurture argument suggests is that environmental and social factors contribute to the development of the alcohol disease, and that these can include, and it's exposure to alcohol at a young age, which you both had, peer pressure and social norms, which everyone has, stressful life events, you both had those, so you had a traumatic experience, Kelly, cultural attitudes towards alcohol use. So do you agree with all of those from the research?
I do. I did not have a lot of peer pressure. I mean, I knew I was not drinking normally. And by the time all my friends were getting into experimenting, I was a full-blown alcoholic. I drank alone because I had that capability with inventory, my stepfather's inventory in my garage. So I started drinking harder and longer at an earlier age. So I felt peer pressure to hide myself because I did drink too much and I knew it.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The rest of them, yeah, absolutely. Yes, the rest of them. I would also like to say something about shame. Shame is, yeah, that's a really, really driving force in addiction. It's, things like, wrecking your car or something and when you're drunk, and then saying, well, I'm never going to do that again. And the next time you wreck your car, and then you start to think that there's something really flawed within you that makes that won't allow you to stop drinking. You can trace it to that, but then you think, yeah, but I must be crazy because I know that's what this causes and I keep doing it. Right. And so you become afraid that you're crazy. Basically, I thought I was crazy and I tried very hard to hide that from other people. So I was real antisocial as a result of the shame I carried.
Yeah, that's really vulnerable of you to share something so important and protective for you, because like you said, you kind of felt alone most of your life when you were younger, and that's what led to drinking, and then shame came into place. So then you feel this heavy amount of shame, which that can keep you from becoming social. So then that just makes what your situation already was even worse.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for sharing that with us. John, any comments about these, the list here, the exposure to alcohol at a young age, peer pressure and social norms, stressful life events, traumatic experiences, cultural attitudes towards alcohol use?
I experienced all 5 of them.
Yeah, I figured.
Because, at 12 years old, I was drinking, people they found out that I could drink a lot and not get drunk.
Right, because your body was so used to it, right?
Right. Then of course the stress of the stress of my job of going to school, of
Right.
being the go-to guy for a lot of different things.
You just segued us right into the next section, John. You basically said everything that I was just about to ask you guys about, that this was all something that you were dealing with, all of this high stress levels, anxiety, inexpensive costs for certain alcohols, which made it easy. In your case, Kelly, you had easy access. Your stepdad, right, was a distributor. Right. So you both of you had all of these issues to contend with, as well as the shame that you talked about, Kelly.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it was all there. I mean, living in an alcoholic home is like walking on eggshells. It's just, you don't know what to expect. And so when you grow up like that, you're already high strung as hell. And, you need something to alleviate anxiety, and the alcohol works because it's about the only thing really available to you when you're 10 to 12 years old. You can get somebody to go and buy it for you, or you can pick the lock on the inventory room. You can always find it somewhere, or you can water down the decanters in the bar. I did that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very, very accessible, and there's a level of social acceptance because it's considered a rite of passage in our country.
Exactly.
Other countries don't have this kind of problem because it's not. It's used in religious ceremonies and stuff. It's not like a party thing.
Exactly. And that makes it even harder for you to combat it when you're in the middle of it, and when you suddenly realize that you're 15, 16 years old and you've already been drinking for 4 years, and you both had a realization that I think I have a problem. I think I'm addicted to this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with today's society is that most people will not buy alcohol for underage drinkers because of what will happen to them if something should happen to these underage drinkers.
Right.
If they get into a car accident, they kill somebody. Where'd you get the alcohol? And even though it was a parent who bought it for them, they still can be charged with if somebody's injured and or killed. And parents have already went to jail because of of the actions of their children,
right?
Because they bought them alcohol, and then you still have the parties and stuff. There was just a lady who was 41 years old in Milwaukee killed the two University of Milwaukee people, Marquette University students from the lacrosse team.
Was that in drunk driving? Is that what you're saying it is?
Yeah, she was drunk driving.
Right.
She's going to go to prison, and but she's already been, arrested a couple other times because of being intoxicated.
Right.
And we need to toughen our laws more in the state of Wisconsin, but because we are one of the main producers of beer, they're not going to do that.
Right.
There's people out there that have 7 or 8 drunk driving offenses that are still driving around.
Exactly. There's many states that they just keep letting people go back out and drive intoxicated. There was a death not too long ago right near my house, just not even miles away, where the woman was heavily intoxicated and she swerved into the other lane. It was a 2-lane road, and she survived and the other 2 died. Then there was another one where they all died, and they were within weeks of each other on the same road, on this Highway 40 that leads from where I am in Volusia County over to Ocala. And it wasn't weeks later, and a same thing happened, and everybody passed away. It's really, it's just horrific. And yeah, that the laws have to be changed for drinking and driving. They really do. But I've talked to people throughout my life, and when I was doing the tough choices presentations, where people would say to me, oh, I never drive. When I drink, I take a cab. I may be addicted to alcohol, but I would never drive. So there's plenty of people that are struggling with alcohol, but we don't ever want to make it like all alcoholics drive drunk, because that's not true at all. Many people that have issues with alcohol and know they do, they would never do that. They would never get in a car and drive. So I think there's just, it seems like people that aren't like, they haven't looked themselves in the mirror and said what they have. Whoops, I lost you, John. Hang on. I gotta call him back. I lost him. We're having
Well, I'm here, Kelly. I mean, Kat.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh.
I finally figured out what the problem was, and it was me.
So for the audience's sake, we had some tech issues. John couldn't hear me, but I could hear him. Kelly could hear me, so we couldn't figure it out. So we just had him on the phone. We did the good old end around tech problems, the best we could. But suddenly when you hung up the phone, I'm like, oh shoot, I lost John, and then I could hear you, and you said you could hear me. So there you go.
Well, yeah, I found the problem, and it was me still,
Okay.
And so I fixed it.
Thank you. That's great. Now we know for future when we get together again, we now will know what to do right out of the gate. What was it?
My speaker over here, the little lever that you pushed all the way.
Yes.
It was on mute still. I don't know how it ever got on mute, but here I am now.
It happens. Well, good. So, the next part that I wanted to share with you guys was something that I found interesting. And so this is the nature argument. So we talked about the nurture argument. The nature argument suggests that the genetics and the biological factors, I know this is really little, dear audience, so I'm going to read it for you, but I just wanted to bring it up. Suggests that the biological factors play a significant role in the development of alcoholism. Studies have shown that individuals with a family history of alcoholism are more likely to develop the disorder. This is because genes can influence how the body processes and responds to alcohol, making some people more susceptible to the alcohol addiction. And it also makes some people actually allergic to alcohol, where it makes them very sick. And my doctor, my pediatrician that I was still seeing when I was in college, and I went in and I would say, hey, I'm just trying to have fun with my fellow friends, and I just want to go out and have a few drinks once in a while. I don't really care that much about alcohol, but I'll drink it now and then, but it makes me sick. Physically, I would get back to my dorm and I would be ill. And so the doctor basically said, there's really no test to prove that you're allergic to alcohol, but if you're physically getting sick, even when you only drink more than 2 drinks, but you don't get sick if you just drink 1 or 2, it's because your body, whether it's because of your blood type, I have a negative blood type, I'm an AB negative, whether it's the blood type or the liver, the enzymes in the liver that help process the alcohol, that process makes me ill. So as long as I do it in moderation, it's kind of like people that are lactose insensitive. As long as they don't, if they're not intolerant, if they're just insensitive, as long as they don't drink too much milk or eat too much cheese or too much ice cream, they're okay. But if they go overboard and get a big old banana split, they're sicker than sick. Well, that's how it is with me. I can have 1 beer and I'm fine. I can have 2 glasses of wine with my dinner over the course of like a 2-hour dinner and I'm fine. But if I go over that edge, like I did sometimes when I lived in the dorms, go to that 3rd, 4th drink, then I would be very sick. So I listened to my pediatrician. They basically said, look, you're just not going to be able to drink. You've got one of those constitutions, and every time if you drink too much, you're going to get sick. And if that's how you want to have your fun, go ahead, but it's not good for your body. So I listened to my body, and I just never drank that much anymore after college. I still drink occasionally, but I can't drink very much. And I know that. So I don't want to be sick. And I think that that's what happens is we don't realize that genetics plays a huge role in what we can put in our bodies. Celiac disease, lactose intolerance, if you have any autoimmune disorders, if you have lupus, or if you have Lyme's disease, or like me, I have chronic fatigue disorder, and there's certain foods that make me extra inflamed and have extra inflammation. And I don't know that we're really taught a lot about that as children. And this GABRA2, have you guys ever heard of that?
No.
Blow that up a little bit for everybody so they can see it. So in my research, when I did this research way back when I was still a police officer and I was doing tough choices for the high school students, I read about this, and that there's this specific gene that can increase the risk of developing alcoholism. And it's called GABRA2, and it's been linked to an increased risk of addiction in many populations. And so this is a little picture of it, obviously under a microscope, but I guess they can test you for this, and they can find out if you are super susceptible, then you may know that you just can't partake, that you just have to, say no to alcohol and drink something else, non-alcoholic, because if you have that particular gene, it can make you even more susceptible to becoming addicted to alcohol. So I was reading about lifestyle changes, and I'm just curious to know for both of you what that looked like for you. So this is just a list I'm going to read off, and you guys can tell me which ones you use to help you and what you didn't need to use. This is from my research. Staying away from people you normally drink with or places where you would drink. Plan activities you enjoy that don't involve drinking. Keep alcohol out of your home. Follow your plan to handle your urges to drink. Remind yourself that you decided to quit. Talk with someone you trust when you have the urge to drink, and create a polite but firm way of refusing a drink when you are offered one. Did you, and we'll start with you, Kelly, did you employ all of these when you took your first step to stop drinking when you were 24?
I did. The other thing I did was I checked myself into IOP, intensive outpatient treatment. I did that 4 nights a week for 9 months. And it was covered by insurance because...
Sorry, Kelly, don't mean to interrupt you, but just so the audience knows, what does that stand for?
That is intensive outpatient.
Thank you.
Intensive outpatient treatment. So it was not one of those, rinse and spins where they put you in a treatment center for 30 days, dry you up and kick you out. This was ongoing for 9 months. I went 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. It was generally individual therapy along with group therapy, women only. And I was also told I had to attend AA meetings, and I still do AA. AA has become my family and my therapy, and there are other things.
They made that conditions of you being in this program that you also attended AA.
Yes. So that was the first thing I did. And the lifestyle changes, I was asked to change my diet. I was asked not to eat sugar. I was asked not to, these were all things that were contingent in the program I was enrolled in. And by the time they let me go, it was a 3-month program, Kathy, and they kept me for 9 months. Okay. I was a sick little girl. And, when they finally let me go.
What age were you at when this was all happening?
I was 23.
23. Okay.
23
and had you
years
had
old.
Your first child yet?
I had my first child, which was the catalyst, yes, for my doing this. So anyway, then I just started going to AA. I got very involved in that. I was at the point, Kathy, where I didn't know how to get out of bed without a drink. So I spent a lot of time.
You're not alone. There are many people.
I just had to wait for the AA clubs to open up because that was like the only safe place for me to be. So I eventually got to a point where I didn't crave alcohol anymore and I could do things without it. But there are a lot of lifestyle changes about as a result. See, because I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to live. Problem-solving skills were out the window. So I spent many, many years just learning how to be an adult. And I'm still doing that.
You should be applauded for you took control of your life. And so many people that pass away because of alcoholism, because of how it affects their health, eventually they never were able to get there. And you should be super proud of yourself for what you did to get your life to where it needed to be when you were only 23 years old.
And I'm
That's-
very grateful. Yeah, I'm very grateful because this doesn't, I look at people like my mother and my ex-husband, and, they didn't get to live a wonderful life, and I do. And this disease actually stole their lives. So I feel exceedingly grateful to have gone the way I went. It could have been a whole different story.
I have another question for you, but I want to go back to John for a minute. John, what is your take on this list of what the research says are the lifestyle changes that can help you when you decide to stop drinking? Did you employ any of these?
Well, in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, when you acquire a sponsor, they help you. There is a list of steps that helps you, and these are things that they talk about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they talk about all of these things. Give you an example. If you go to a barber shop often enough, eventually you're going to get a haircut, right? It's
Right.
the same. It's the same way with the bar. If you are, and you can visit bars if you have a legitimate reason for being there. You're meeting somebody for dinner,
Right.
whatever. But that you don't go to the bar every night if you're trying to remain sober, because
Right.
Eventually you will succumb to the pressures of other people. Now, when the very last one, when people offer me a drink, I say, I can't, I'm the designated driver. And they say, oh, very good. Let me buy you a Pepsi. Oh, well, they're already free for me, but thank you anyways. You just say, I'm the designated driver, or, I live 30 miles away and I'm not going to have alcohol on my breath, whatever excuse you want to give, that, and when you after a while, people, the people that are closest to me, they know, and, they've told other people, hey, listen, John already said he doesn't want to have a drink,
Right.
Leave him alone. And so, and I applaud, that they can do that for me, because of the simple fact is that I don't want to have to come off as being a jerk or whatever, and I can just say, no, today I'm not drinking. And, luckily I haven't fallen into the social trap of, just because the day ends in Y doesn't mean that I have to drink again, and that's what it was for me. It didn't matter whether it was raining, snowing, the sun was shining, I drank. If the Packers lost or if they won, it didn't matter what was going on. I drank to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And when I drank to get drunk. And,
Right.
So yeah, all those factors that you had up there,
Yeah.
they talk about them in meetings. We discuss them. And
I figured they were part of both of your meetings. So question for both of you, and I don't care which one of you goes first. When I looked at that list, the one thing that jumped out at me is not hang around with friends who drink. How do you do that? Because everybody drinks. I have that at times because I don't drink very much, and I can go months without a drink. John's known me since I was 14. We've been friends. Well, we didn't know each other real well in high school, but we knew of each other. But we become friends doing our class reunions. He does his, I do mine for good old Madison East High School Burgolders. So John knows and the reason why I'm a lightweight is because what I explained to you all is I believe I am somewhat allergic to alcohol. So I am afraid to drink too much, because even if the peer pressure is there, because I don't want to be sick for the rest of the night when I get home. And because of that, I just don't drink very often, period. Because I enjoy a Diet Coke, which is my guilty pleasure, as much as I do a glass of beer, to be honest with you. And I enjoy my iced tea as much as I do a glass of wine. There's just times where it's socially nice to be able to drink. And this was something I wanted to ask you guys about, because there's times when I drink, even though I know that it could still make me sick, even if I just drink a little bit, it can still give me a headache. It can make my central nervous system, cause me to have my neck hurt more, which is my neck injury. And those of you that have neck injuries, you know what I'm talking about. When you drink too much caffeine or too much alcohol, it goes right into the central nervous system, and then it kicks up your nerve damage pain in your neck. So those of you with neck injuries, you know that I know what I'm talking about here. So I'm even afraid to drink now, even one glass of wine or even one beer, because if I'm having a bad day, it can make my neck hurt. And I just don't like pain anymore at age 62. I try to do things that don't cause me pain, right? And most of us live that way. But when we're out and it's like a special occasion, like it's New Year's Eve or it's your birthday and somebody wants to buy you a birthday drink, or you're having an Italian dinner party and all your friends are coming and everyone's bringing wine. And if you're not an alcoholic, but you're someone like me who really shouldn't drink too much because it causes me pain or it makes me sick, that's where it gets really dicey, because I want to participate. I want to have wine with everybody with this great Italian meal, but I really know I shouldn't, because I know it's probably going to make my neck feel like crap, or I could end up getting sick later on in the night, even if I drink a little bit of alcohol. So that's where it becomes almost imperative for our friends to understand and appreciate why we don't drink, whether it's for me because I'm allergic to it, or for you too, because you can't anymore. You cannot drink. You have to stay away from it. How do you handle these kind of social situations?
Go ahead, Phil.
I drive myself. I drive myself everywhere. It's very important that if it's getting ugly or weird, or people are insisting I have a drink or something like that,
Right.
I can leave. I don't have to feel uncomfortable about not drinking. And I also don't, when I'm perfectly honest with myself, Kathy, in the end, I wasn't having a good time. I'm
smiling at you, Kelly, not because I'm laughing at you. I'm smiling because John knows this. I drive myself everywhere. And the few times when I agree to go with someone else, I have regretted it till the nth degree, because there's times where everybody's drinking and I'm just not, and I'm not really having fun anymore. And I need to go home. And so I think it's one of the big tactics where if you're not a drinker or you need to not drink because of alcoholism, that you do always have your own transportation.
Always drive. Yeah, because I just find that, and then it's a lot, and I don't honestly, maybe it's my age, but I think it's just, I don't care if I'm polite about saying no. My life depends on my sobriety. It's almost, my disease has almost killed me on numerous occasions.
Absolutely.
So I don't, it's like denying somebody their insulin. I'm not going to do that to them. And I don't think anybody should try to put poison in my body. And to me, alcohol is poison. And so those people aren't my friends.
That's a great segue. You got it right hit it right on the head. Alcohol is poison, and that's what we need to teach our children. We need to teach our friends who don't want to listen. Alcohol is poison. It's simple as that. That's just science. And so
nobody needs it to have fun. Nobody needs it to have fun.
We don't need it to have fun. We don't need it for a healthy diet. We don't need it at all. It's just it is poison. You are putting poison in your body. And when you drink Diet Coke, I know I'm putting poison in my body. People, trust me. I say it's my guilty pleasure, because every once in a while I just still crave a gosh darn dang Diet Coke. And we didn't have our Wednesday night show last night. On Wednesdays we get to swear a little bit. It's called On Wednesdays We Swear. That's our hashtag. But gosh damn it, I just want that Diet Coke sometimes, because I think I'm somewhat addicted to the taste of Diet Coke. And so I wanted to tell you guys this, because this is my empathy that I can have for the two of you, because to have true empathy, you have to have had it happen to you. But we can all have a little bit of empathy, and we can have sympathy for people. We can all have sympathy. Empathy is a little trickier because you have to really dig deep to have it if it's something that's never happened to you. So for instance, if you never lost your dad to cancer when you were 19, you probably don't have a huge level of empathy for me. You can have a little bit, but not a huge level. I have a little bit of empathy for you guys because I stopped drinking diet soda for 7 years because when I was
great.
dealing with this neck injury, I have to take anti-inflammatories, and I sometimes get a little bit of an ulcer. So I had to give up coffee. I had to give up diet soda. I was still allowed to drink herbal tea, and I could have black tea, but only like once a day to get rid of that ulcer because I have to take anti-inflammatories or I can't survive on this planet. I have so much chronic pain from this damn neck injury and in my shoulders and chronic fatigue disorder. And so I need my ibuprofen, but I had to give that up because I couldn't get rid of the ulcer. So I had to switch to something called Celebrex, which is for all of you much better on your gut if you have chronic inflammation and chronic pain. So I had to give up my guilty pleasures. I couldn't have my decaf coffee, which I loved. I could, because decaf coffee was almost worse for my ulcer. I couldn't have my diet Coke. So for 7 years, no. So then I healed the ulcer. I was on Celebrex. And then about 2 years ago, I'm visiting my family in Madison and I'm hanging out at home and I go out to watch a Packer game and everybody's drinking, but I don't want to drink. So I have a Diet Coke. I broke it. I went off the wagon of no Diet Coke for 7 years. And now, and then I was drinking it again for almost a year. And lo and behold, I hurt my ulcer. Now it's back a little bit. So now I had to go back off the Diet Coke. Those that come with me on Friday nights knew that was my thing, to get a pizza and have a Diet Coke while we live stream Friday Night Lives and talk about all the lying that goes on in these court cases on Friday nights. And I would have my Diet Coke. Well, now I can't because I have exasperated the ulcer again, thanks to the gosh darn poison that's in Diet Coke. So it's not just alcohol that can be poisonous. Right? We can drink other things that aren't good for us and make ourselves sick. And then we have to get off that addiction. You were talking about sugar a little while ago, Kelly, and how they wanted you to change your diet. I've always had a problem with sugar. John knows this about me. My grandmother worked in a bakery. So we were lucky when we were kids. She would bring us fresh donuts Friday night before the East games. And we'd get to have hamburgers at my grandpa would make hamburgers, and we'd all have hamburgers, corn on the cob, and potato chips, and good American meal. And then we'd have donuts, and then we'd get to go to an East football game. This was my childhood every Friday night. So I grew up with sugar being okay. And in my grandparents' generation, if you served a meal to someone and you didn't give them a dessert, that was a sin. Like if you had a dinner party and there was no dessert, that just ruins your dinner party right there. So our generation, we were kind of borderline boomers. If you were born in 62, 63, 64, you're like a borderline boomer. My mom was a boomer. She was born in 42. You always had dessert. There was no meal that was ever served at a house that didn't have dessert. And even if there were diabetics in your home, you had like sugar-free dessert. So I have a really bad problem with sugar. And now that I've gotten older, I know sugar makes my inflammation worse. I know sugar isn't good for me, but I have a problem. I have a real problem. I don't eat candy. I want my donut, or I want my cookie, or my piece of pie. So everybody in this world suffers from some type of an addiction, whether it be food, of some type of a food addiction, or a dessert addiction, or an addiction to coffee. Some people drink way too much coffee. My friend Pat was addicted to diet Mountain Dew. And regular Mountain Dew. And he gained a ton of weight because he drank a 12-pack a day while he was at work, guys. A 12-pack a day. Give that up because it was affecting his health, and he was pre-diabetic. And so he had to give up his soda too. And he struggled with it. I mean, he would call me and I was like his support person. So it's not just alcohol that can poison us or make us have health issues that we wouldn't have if we didn't eat these things. So I understand why AA would want you to also clean up your diet. John, did they ask you to clean up your diet as well?
Well, because I worked in restaurants, no. You know, the guy that I choose to help me in this program, but eventually I did change my diet for other reasons other than, mainly because I needed to start losing some of the weight that I was carrying around, because
The doggies.
because of all the alcohol that I had consumed. I had gained about 20 pounds. And, so I started back, doing the physical exercise of stuff. And, so I had to change that diet and along the way, but it was a slow process. It took me almost 2 years to lose that weight, and but along the way, other things did change, because I was no longer drinking. And, for the first 2 years, I didn't go into any bars. I couldn't afford it, I could afford it. I had the money. It's just that I wasn't capable, strong enough on my own. And so, and you yourself have witnessed it, Kat, at class reunions where I disappear for a while. Well, that's because generally I call somebody in the program and I say, hey, what's happening? That's me getting reinforcement even after all these years, because I still need that, sure, I can say, just
Especially
because
at
I got
class reunion.
X number of decades in the program,
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm still not going to be susceptible, and especially when there's all kinds of alcohol around.
Right.
And, I'm walking around with a bottle of, as you know, I'm addicted to Wild Cherry Pepsi, but I only buy bottles. I don't buy cans. And wherever I go, I have that bottle of Wild Cherry Pepsi with me. It never leaves my side. That way nobody can put alcohol in it, and, and because people like to be foolish, oh yeah, we'll just give them some alcohol in there, and I've seen it happen to other people,
That's terrible, isn't it?
I've heard, why I should say I've heard from other people, and it's a cruel thing to do, but unfortunately it does happen, and yeah, so even today, I like a nice burger. I eat brats, but I also eat chicken and turkey, and you have to do this not only for yourself, but for the people around you. And so and as you know, my significant other, my ex-significant other, she tried to impose, all that vegan stuff on me, and it just didn't sit well with me, because number one was I lost 33 pounds because of that. And the doctor, he told me, he goes, you're just way too thin. He wanted me to gain 5-6 pounds, which now I have, but it, how, and it's taken me almost 2.5 years to keep that weight on, there for a couple months, I did manage to lose, a couple pounds, but now that I've gained, I'm back up to 174 pounds, but it took me 2.5 years to gain 7 pounds, and you say, and people say the way that you eat, it should have taken you a week, but yeah, some people have to change their diet in order, because if you're used to having, a T-bone steak and a bottle of wine,
Right.
well,
Right.
no longer eat T-bone steaks on Friday nights or whatever,
Right.
And so
Kelly, what did you have to do? What did you do with your diet? What were your like guilty pleasures that you had to give up? And was that difficult? Because you're both already battling the alcohol, the craving to have alcohol, and you're dealing with what you have to deal with, calling your sponsors, going to your meetings, calling people when you need to. Now they're asking you to give up food that you love. So that's like, to me, a double whammy. And I did want to just read Amber E. Thank you. She wrote, I read a good book, Lost Connections by Johan Harrell. He explained, and Kelly's shaking her head. He explained how important real connections are. Connections help us heal. Alienated tribal communities have virtually no issues like us. Thank you, Amber. I appreciate that you put that up there. I'm going to make a note of that. I'll put that on the replay for all of you on the replay. I'll put that in the comment section on YouTube. Go ahead.
I think
Kelly.
that's the way to. I was just going to say, I really honestly feel that's the only way to alleviate addiction is to teach people how to connect without drugs and alcohol. Now, I gave up sugar because it was asked of me while I was an intensive outpatient, and that was quite difficult because alcohol is primarily sugar. So I had a severe craving for the sugar. I mean, other than sugar, there's no nutritional value in alcohol. So, but that was the whole point. It was explained to me that because sugar is a mood alterator as well as alcohol, that you want to get it out of your diet so that when you have a feeling, say you're grieving or you're angry, that you can express the most vulnerable form of that and heal. So it did work, but it was difficult to give up. I have never been a meat eater. I don't eat meat, and that's just been a choice. Also, right out of treatment, I became anorexic. So, and that's a real common thing too for women because you're looking for something to control. So if you can't control your alcohol and your sugar, and you can lose a lot of weight and get attention for that. And so I did that, and what a lovely puppy. Oh my goodness. What kind of a dog is that?
This is my grand puppy Zeus. He is a blue Doberman. And he is quite the baby.
Oh my goodness, he's gorgeous.
My son
just left.
He's beautiful. He's 91 pounds. And my little buddy Tanner, my service animal Tanner, he is a Bernedoodle. So he's a Bernese mountain dog and a toy poodle, and he's 30 pounds.
Oh, how beautiful.
Two of them saved my life, I'll tell you. And Zeus is very emotional. My son just left to go with a friend. So Zeus you didn't hear him because I muted my mic, but lots of people that live stream with me on Friday nights know what happens when my son leaves. Zeus cries, and it's this pathetic, like loud, like groaning, crying sound. So I usually have to mute my mic for a few minutes till I can get him back in here and pet him. But he plays.
That's so funny. Yeah, I'm in my granddaughter's room in my house. And my dog is standing outside the door. He's 120 pounds, and he's crying like a baby. But he'll try to sit in my lap if I open the door. So, oh, precious. Oh, my God, that looks like a stuffed animal. He's so pretty.
He does. He seriously does.
Oh.
He's a Bernese mountain dog and a toy poodle, and he's just a joy. Truly is a joy.
Beautiful. What's his name?
Or chronic fatigue disorder or heavy anxiety like I do, you got to get yourselves a dog. I know there are a lot of or a cat, whatever.
And I don't think having a boyfriend either.
They literally do. They save my life, and I think I think they're just the best therapy for most of us that live with any type of PTSD or any type of addictions or chronic fatigue disorder like mine. And yes, do you have one?
I have a 120-pound black lab who is crying outside the bedroom door as we speak.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I want him in, but he'd want to sit on my lap. So,
what a sweetie. Well, guys, what I want to ask you is that we talked about so much tonight. I appreciated everything you let me ask you and all how frank you were and your vulnerability. And it's just amazing to me. And I'd like to have you back when we can get you two on the same night again at the same time and go more into about, I'd like to learn more about AA. I don't know a lot about it. I have friends and family that I think would be intrigued to know more about it as well. And some of our subscribers that were with us tonight and that will be with us on the replay. So I would love to have you both back. So we will work on our schedule and we can do a part 2 where we can do kind of a intro where you remind everybody what we talked about. We can even show a little bit of this this stream, and that way people that weren't here with us tonight, we can catch them up a little bit. We can show a little bit of this stream, and then we can delve into AA, because I really would like to know more about your journeys with AA, what it's like, what your support is like. And John you both do some public speaking with AA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. I've done a lot. Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that. So if you're okay, I'd love to have you both back.
Okay.
Wonderful. I
Very good.
appreciate that.
And-
It's been nice
Yeah.
doing this.
I
And-
appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
I feel like anytime we can inform people on the help that's available, and that you
Yes.
don't have to stay stuck, you can always find help.
Absolutely. And you two are just amazing survivors of something that most of us can't understand really, but we can a little bit with the ways that I explained. We all have things that we need to give up or that we shouldn't eat or drink because of our own health. But to have to actually, not be able to eat something because it could kill you in a couple months, that's a whole different level of sobriety. And what you guys have to do to maintain that is just awe-inspiring.
Well, according to physicians, just because you quit drinking, if you decide to go back drinking, you take off. You drink like as if you had never quit drinking. And some
Your
people
disease
even drink more.
Right.
That there's a saying in AA. While you're sitting in a meeting, your alcoholism is out in the parking lot doing push-ups.
Oh,
And
that's
because
scary, John. That's scary, though. That it's so scary to hear that. Hear you say that, but I've heard others tell me that it's just it's always just there on the edge, trying to come back and take you over, and you're in the fight of your life for the fight of your life, right?
yes, there are days that I am.
I believe that. I totally believe that. So I just wanted to end our night tonight, and gratefully they have agreed to come back, everyone. So we're going to get to have them back next month. So after talking about your drinking with your provider or an alcoholic counselor like AA, come on, Zeus, come here. Did you, these are the programs. So these are the programs that Kelly and John basically mentioned that you could go to. Teach people about alcohol use and its effects, like they're doing with this live stream. You can offer counseling and support about how to stay away from alcohol and provide a space where you can have talks with others. And that's what they're both doing. Kelly's going to go out to the schools and talk about inclusion and about, loving yourself and feeling accepted, giving acceptance. Don't bully people, give acceptance to everyone. John and Kelly both speak at their AA meetings, and it's really a tribute to them that they're willing to do these things, even when they are both in the fight for their life constantly because of this disease. So other people you can get support from, obviously, they both have done this. Trusted family members and friends who do not drink. Your place of work may have employee assistance programs for you. If you need help, reach out to them. And of course, what Kelly and John were talking about tonight, and they're going to share with us next month, is their journey with Alcoholics Anonymous. So these are all ways that you can get help. If you're watching this on the replay or you watched us live tonight, please reach out to all of these different avenues. If you want to talk to Kelly or John, I'm sure they'd be happy to let you email them. If you feel that something they said tonight really resonated with you and you'd like to talk to them, I'm sure they would be happy to let you have their emails for a question or two. I'm going to give you my email here at the bottom right now. It's ACTTMSW, and that is at gmail.com. Because when I first started with Social Change Warriors, I was primarily just doing social work. So it stands for ACT Master of Social Workers because I was working with a lot of social workers and we were doing programs in our communities. And then we were coming together to do pre-recordeds for communities. So that's where I came up with this email. If you're wondering what that stands for, it's acttmsw@gmail.com. So if you have any questions about where you can get help, how you can get help, please email me and I will send your email to John and or Kelly. And thank you, everyone. Thank you to John and Kelly for being so brave, for joining us tonight. I appreciate you both so much. And please remember to share us on your social medias. If you can subscribe to the channel, we are not monetized. I do not collect a salary for live streaming that I do during the week. This is all volunteer for me. So we just appreciate the subscribing because it helps boost our numbers. It helps push more media out there for the victims of the homicides that we're advocating for with their families. And I get the opportunity to meet families in person here in Florida. I meet them via Zoom meetings, FaceTime, emails, and it's really it's heroic what they do. They get up every day and they fight for justice for their loved one. So if we can support them just by joining my channel and by coming to the live streams, sharing on your social medias, justice for these beautiful humans whose lives were taken by the hands of someone else. That means the world to me and to their families. So thank you for being part of Social Change Warriors. Thank you for now Kelly and John, thank you for now also being part of Social Change Warriors. I appreciate you so much with your honesty and your vulnerability with the fight that you have against this really horrible, horrible disease that so many people in our country are up against. And I think it's so much like everything. It takes a village. It takes a community. We all have to respect each other and honor each other and not be so critical of each other's differences because any of this could happen to any of us. Some of the ladies that I am advocating for who lost their lives, they lost their lives to their husband or their boyfriend. They had no clue this was coming. Some of them were in domestic violence situations, but they thought it was all verbal. They didn't really think much of it. They wanted to stay married. They didn't want to get divorced. And then their husband unalived them and their families are left picking up the pieces. And this could literally happen to any of us. And alcoholism or any type of addiction to any other type of prescription medication or cigarettes or any type of drug that you may or may not decide to take because you are depressed or your life has had a tragedy or a trauma. We all have to support each other. Any of us could become a victim to any of these issues that really plague our society. So we have to stick together and we have to support each other and we have to not judge each other. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, John.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you both. So we'll see them both next month. I'll let you all know what date we're going to do part 2 of Surviving Alcoholism. I hope you all have a good night. If you are a football fan, there's going to be a good game coming on tonight, the Packers and the Washington Redskins. And if you're like me, I'll be in my Saturday football coma with college sports for my Badgers and my USC Trojans. But tomorrow night, I'll be back with Friday Night Lives, where Julie, my co-host, and I will be discussing more of the fallout from the Karen Read trials 1 and 2 and more shenanigans going on with the Brian Walsh trial, which is coming up. We believe he unalived his wife and he is arrested. He is in jail. He will be going to trial. And I'll have more updates as well on Suzanne Morphew's justice. Barry Morphew may be getting out on a bond certificate, which is not a good idea, guys. And I'll talk more about that tomorrow night as well. That's very scary. Barry needs to stay in jail. I'm 99% positive, and I can say this because of my background in policing and social work and my expertise in domestic violence, that Barry should stay in jail. He needs to stay in jail for his trial. I am terrified what will happen if they let him out. I do believe that he will possibly either disappear or possibly unalive himself, just like Fotis Dulos did when they let him out on bail. And we still don't know where Jennifer is. She's never been found. We have to keep people that have mounds of evidence against them for a crime. They are innocent until proven guilty. But when we let them out, when there's mounds of evidence, they unalive their wife, and we can't find their wife. Why are we letting them out on a bond certificate? Suzanne was missing because he hid her body for years. So I'll be giving you an update on justice for Suzanne Morphew, justice for Anna Walsh and other updates as well tomorrow night regarding other information coming out of Massachusetts that Julie, our resident Bostonian, will share with us. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you being part of Social Change Warriors. We will be back tomorrow night with Friday Night Lies, and then I'll be back next week with more content on the victims of homicide that we are advocating for. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, Kat. Talk to you later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank
can
you
stay-
again, Kelly.
You guys can stay with me a minute. I'm just going to put you in the green room for a minute. I'm just going to play our outro song honoring all of our victims and their families, and I'll be there to talk with you in just a moment.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much. Remember, all the loved ones that have been unalived by the hands of someone else are telling you, Zeus is telling you, my life mattered.
They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge and name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight. The heroes undo the harm, calling out corruption. We'll stand tall for justice and truth. We'll risk it all. My life mattered is the cry we sing. Together we rise, let freedom ring.
Hey, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Stand by. I have to end the stream. Good night, everyone. All right. I have to. There we go. Sorry, guys. I clicked the wrong button there. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow for Friday Night Lies.